It ain't the left side or the right side, then it must be the fin side. Inside. It ain't the left side.
Thank you, Solo D. Welcome to another episode of On the Fin Side here with Kat and Paul Pickin. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Spreaker, iTunes, YouTube, and on iHeartRadio. Paul, I am in a good mood tonight. It's draft day. I've had a couple of drinks, and the Dolphins took my third overall player on my Dolphins draft board in Minkah Fitzpatrick. Free safety out of Alabama, fits a lot of different needs. What was your first reaction when the Dolphins took him at 11?
My first reaction? That's an easy one. I sat back and went, ha, 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 to all these assholes on a quarterback. I mean, I'm just so glad it wasn't a quarterback. I know I put something out there earlier. There were four guys that any one of the four I would be okay with at number 11, and that was Minkah Fitzpatrick, Derwin James, Roquan Smith, and Tremaine Edmonds. Outside of that, the more mocks I did on FanSpeak, the more mocks I did in general, the worse the Dolphins draft shaped up after the first round if they did not take one of those stud linebackers at number 11 or one of those stud safeties at number 11. I like what this does to Miami's defense. I like the fact that they can move TJ McDonald up into the box a little bit. I like that Minkah can move all over that secondary and help out where needed. So really, I love this pick. I mean, I think I had him as my 1A a few times over Derwin James, ahead of Roquan Smith and Tremaine Edmonds. So I'm elated. I love what this shapes up for Miami on the draft board.
Yeah, I loved when it came down to the Dolphins at 11. You still saw on the board Minkah Fitzpatrick, Derwin James, and Tremaine Edmonds. There at 11, you've always said it best that by taking a player like a Minkah Fitzpatrick or Derwin James, you improve not only free safety, but also the linebacker spot too. So Minkah Fitzpatrick himself, 6'1", 201 pounds, 4'4", 540, five-star recruit coming out of high school, and he's going to be able to pair with Rashad Jones back there at the safety spot. They'll be able to use TJ McDonald a lot more creatively, really solve two positions there at linebacker and safety, improve the middle of the defense overall. And I think a lot of Dolphins fans might be looking at that thinking, safety, we're okay with TJ McDonald and Rashad Jones. But the reality is the Dolphins needed to get a playmaker and somebody faster in the middle of their defense. Minkah Fitzpatrick definitely does that. And looking at the defensive back position in general, whether you classify Minkah as a safety, a cornerback, now you look at that defensive back spot. You have four players on 24 years old and younger: Minkah Fitzpatrick, Xavier Howard, Cordrea Tankersley, and Bobby McCain. So a lot of different needs filled with that spot.
And, Kat, one thing I want to just jump in real quick with, too, is one of the biggest heels of the Dolphins' defense for as long as I can remember is the ability to cover the tight end. That's been especially exposed against teams like New England, who have Rob Gronkowski. Minkah Fitzpatrick was the best of those four we had listed at covering tight ends. He is the best possibility of covering Rob Gronkowski if he doesn't retire. So, I mean, he can do a lot of different things, but the fact that he can match up one-on-one with a tight end and negate them in a lot of scenarios is going to be huge for this defense. It's a huge weakness, and it's been filled. So I'm elated with that fact.
Yeah, and going back to the quarterback position now, 4 quarterbacks taken in the top 10 of this NFL draft here. Do you think the Dolphins have additional pressure, and Ryan Tannehill has additional pressure now that the Dolphins didn't take somebody or trade up for a quarterback?
Nope.
I mean, I agree, because Ryan Tannehill, when you look at it, he's paid accordingly, and there's going to be this placebo effect of Ryan Tannehill coming back anyway. When you look at the top 10 ahead of the Dolphins, I'm glad they stayed put in where they were, because what I thought would happen is you would see 3 or 4 quarterbacks taken ahead of the Dolphins at 11, and there were actually 4. Saquon Barkley was taken number 2 by the Giants. Bradley Chubb taken number 5 by the Broncos. Quentin Nelson taken 6 by the Colts. Denzel Ward went number 4, and I thought he would go somewhere as well in the top 10 too. And then Mike McGlinchey, a little bit of a surprise there at 9. So it shoved that value down, and the Dolphins stayed there at number 11 and took the right player. So getting a player on the back end of their defense that can be a core player in the long term really makes a big difference. Paul, who are you looking at in the second day? I mean, I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this. Who are you looking at at that number 42 pick?
Well, I know we agreed to name 3 players, and as much as I'd love to say Dallas Goedert, and Dallas Goedert as well, I will throw 2 other ones in there because I know I had one of them in my initial list, and another one's a little bit of a surprising slide at this point. Darius Geis, the running back, I think he could be a good fit for this team, even though I do think there's some value Miami could have later on. I'm a little surprised to see him on the board given the fact that several running backs went in the first round. And then Josh Jackson, the corner. I mean, he's a guy that was starting to move up draft boards by all reports into the top half of the first round. He's still out there. So either of those guys I'd be okay with, but you and I both know, all of our listeners know, I'm 100% in on Dallas Goedert. If the Dolphins walk away from the number 10 pick tomorrow or move up a little bit to get him, and first 2 rounds, as you've put it before, they walk away with Minkah Fitzpatrick and Dallas Goedert, no matter what they do the rest of the draft, I'm still happy with the result.
Yeah, I'm going to really be happy with one of 5 players now, and you've named a couple of them. My number 1 choice is going to be Maurice Hurst, the defensive tackle from Michigan. If you can line him up in the middle of that defense and create some plays, you really solve a problem there. Number 2 is Dallas Goedert for me, and I'm totally fine if we see Maurice Hurst and Goddard there in the second round, and the pick is Dallas Goedert. Number 3 is Darius Geis. It doesn't surprise me right now that Geis is available because he didn't really take on a full workload at LSU. But that could be a good thing for the Dolphins, especially if he falls to 42, because Kenyon Drake is not somebody who has ever had a full workload either. And then 2 players that are falling down. One you named, cornerback Josh Jackson out of Iowa. He was a 1-year player but had 8 interceptions, really fits that boundary cornerback mold the Dolphins are looking for. It's not a big need, but if he falls from, what we thought would be the 20s down to 42, would be a good pick. And then number 5 on my board is Will Hernandez, who I'm a little bit surprised did not come off the board in that offensive guard run as well. So, Paul, overall, Minkah Fitzpatrick, number 11 to the Dolphins. How do you grade this pick?
Easily an A. I mean, as we talked about earlier, as you know, I've said, and you touched on, it solves not just 1 but 2 positions. And the fact that it really solves the linebacking core, it really solves the safety position, and even gives them some depth at corner. It just knocks it out of the park for me. So easily an A.
I'm easily at an A myself. And that will do it for our wrap-up of day 1 of the Miami Dolphins draft, where they came away with Alabama defensive back Minkah Fitzpatrick. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Spreaker, iTunes, YouTube, and on iHeartRadio. And if it's not on the right side and it's not on the left side, it is on the fin side.
It ain't the left side or the right side, then it must be the fin side. Inside. It ain't the left side or the right side, then it must be the fin side. Listen, Dolphins fans across the land all tuning in to see what Brian Cat